Hello everyone and welcome back to another Canadian Politics Explained video. And in today's video we're going to be going over how Doug Ford is in trouble following his COVID-19 restrictions that he introduced a few days ago and quickly backtracked on due to widespread criticism. So, a few days ago, Doug Ford introduced new measures to combat the spread of COVID-19 in Ontario, as the third wave in Ontario has been very deadly. And case counts have been rising faster than ever before and have reached a new peak of about 4,000 new cases per day. So this led Doug Ford to slowly introduce new restrictions, and eventually, about 2 weeks ago now, he introduced a stay-at-home order for all of Ontario. This was unpopular, but this was not the main measure that broke the camel's back and led Doug Ford to becoming very unpopular and receiving criticism from everyone in Ontario. Not everyone, but most people in Ontario. So, after the stay-at-home order was introduced, about a week later, he introduced measures which gave the police power to question anyone on the streets about why they were out, like if it was essential or not, and also closed down playgrounds. Now, this led to widespread criticism, as there was no evidence that playgrounds led to any super spreader events, and giving police power on the streets was not very popular in Ontario at all, as this gave the police a lot of power to question anyone they saw. This led to widespread backlash from all over the political spectrum, and this led to Doug Ford being very, very unpopular in the province of Ontario, and he still hasn't recovered from this yet either. So the panel that advises Ontario's COVID-19 response has said that they did not recommend these measures and that Ford introduced them on his own. So this also led to more backlash, as he was seen as not following the panel's advice, which he was still being accused of, as his measures were introduced slowly and he introduced a few measures every few days. So he never took really decisive action, as he only introduced a few measures every time that he saw fit, instead of introducing strong measures all at once, which would have stemmed the spread, theoretically, which would have stemmed the spread faster and led to less death and destruction. Well, not destruction, but overwhelming of hospitals that occurred because of this third wave and the magnitude of it. So, if I go to this track over here, as you can see, Ontario reached a peak of COVID-19 cases on about the 16th of April, with an average, or 17th of April, with an average of 4,370 cases per day for the past 7 days. Now, this is very, very high. Obviously, it's higher than the third wave ever peaked, which was about 1,000 cases lower, at about 3,500, and this has led to many hospitalizations and obviously increased deaths. So a lot of these new cases and deaths have been from young people, as they have been more active and more socially active, especially. And also a lot of the older population of Ontario has been vaccinated, as this is what Ontario has targeted recently, as vaccine shipments have been slow from the federal government as of late. Most recently, there was a delayed shipment of about 400,000 Moderna vaccines, which definitely slowed down Ontario's vaccination program. But still, a lot of the people who are 60 and over have been vaccinated with at least one dose. Now, this has led to a decrease in deaths and hospitalizations of people above the age of 60, as they have been vaccinated, and thus are less likely to develop severe disease. But young people, they have been, many of them have not been vaccinated, especially people in their 20s. So they have been out socializing more, as many people are growing tired of the restrictions. So this kind of led to a very big increase of cases among young people, and thus more young people entered the hospital, and a lot of this has led to hospitalizations being higher than ever before, and for hospitals, especially in the Greater Toronto area, being overwhelmed due to the surge of COVID-19. And if I go to deaths here, so I can go to breakdown here, as you can see, deaths have been higher than usual, although they are still fairly low compared to this wave of the pandemic, mostly because of vaccinations and the increase in cases among young people and not so much older people, but they are still significantly higher than they were in mid-March and mid-February when the second wave was over, and there was kind of a baseline of about 1,000 cases per day. So if I go to these Ontario polls here, this is a poll tracker that has been going since basically December 2019. So here, during the summer, and into the winter as well, Doug Ford experienced a massive surge in support, because as you can see in March and May, between March and May, when COVID-19 first became a problem in Ontario, Doug Ford was extremely unpopular for many of the similar reasons that he is now, because he was seen as not following the science and just introducing measures based on what he thought was right at the time. But then in the summer, when cases were lower, he enjoyed higher support among Ontarians because, as you can see, there were low cases throughout the summer. If I go back here, cumulative, and here, as you can see, there were only like 100 cases per day throughout all of the summer, which is very low compared to what they are experiencing right now with their third wave. So these measures that have been introduced kind of in a staggered manner, as he only introduced restrictions kind of half-heartedly, as I've mentioned before. So he has been experiencing a massive drop in support. So at the beginning of February, he was polling at 44%, and now they're polling at 37.5%, which is very low compared to what they were polling up here, obviously. And the Liberal Party has been the main one that has experienced increases because of this, and the NDP has kind of stayed stagnant, as you can see here, as they experienced a dip in the summer, and now they have gone up to their previous baseline of around 25%, but they haven't really experienced too much of an increase, at least not as much as the Liberal Party has here. So this shows that Doug Ford could be in trouble here, but it also shows that if there was no COVID-19, Doug Ford, if they had managed to contain COVID-19 in the summer and there would have been no second wave, Doug Ford most likely would have been able to enjoy a very high approval rating and would have a good chance at winning the next election. However, this is not the case, obviously, and with COVID-19 resurging in Ontario and new restrictions coming into force, he has obviously experienced severe backlash from all parties and all parts of the spectrum, including people who are conservatives but do not believe that the lockdown measures should be in place, or think that the response has just been too disorganized and it hasn't been following the science enough. So if I go over here to the 2018 Ontario election, as you can see, the NDP were able to become the dominant left-leaning party, and the Conservative Party was able to capitalize on great dissatisfaction with Kathleen Wynne's Liberal government. But now, obviously, this has changed, as the NDP have experienced a significant drop in support from their previous levels of support in the last election. As you can see, they won, here we are, 33.59% of the vote, and now they're only projected to win 25, with the Liberals projected to win 29, nearly. So this shows that the Liberal Party has kind of been experiencing a resurgence and has once again become the dominant left-leaning party in Ontario. So one more thing, the poll tracker has been updated, and I won't go over this too much because not much has changed, but the Liberal support has increased slightly, while Conservative support has decreased. And the reason for the reduction in the Liberal seat projection is just because of 2 seat losses in Quebec to the Bloc Québécois, as the Bloc Québécois have gained a little bit of support back in Quebec. So one more thing, if I go over here, as you can see down here, this article basically talks about how there has been a lot of struggling in Ontario's hospital system as of recently because of the new surge in COVID-19 cases. And it also talks about how a lot of these new cases are mainly young people, and how a lot of the struggling has been concentrated in Toronto itself, and how air ambulance services are kind of capitalizing on this and making, not money, but they're increasing their business because many patients have to be airlifted out of Toronto because there are not enough beds available in Toronto for them to, I guess, have a bed and be cared for. So this kind of shows the human element of the COVID-19 crisis in Ontario, as we often just think of it as numbers and deaths as numbers. But this article kind of describes how there is a human element to this, and a lot of nurses and patients have to go through a lot of struggle during this wave of COVID-19. And we often just see the numbers and think, oh, that's bad, but this kind of adds a new element to it if we actually get to hear first-hand accounts of what it looks like on the front lines of Ontario's COVID-19 response. So, once again, just to conclude, this is the main reason why Doug Ford has been experiencing a dip in support, and this also may affect the federal Conservatives, but in my eyes, it will not affect them too much, as this is mainly directed at Doug Ford and not the Conservative Party as a whole, because Doug Ford has been the scapegoat for Ontario's response, and this has led to a diminishing of support for the provincial Progressive Conservative Party in Ontario. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.